Hello and welcome to this painting tutorial, and I want to draw or paint this bird with watercolor, and for the setup I'm simply using a graphite pencil, and this pencil that I'm using at the moment is a mechanical graphite pencil. You can refill it, and in that way you always have a very sharp graphite pencil at hand. So they're very neat. But of course you can also use a standard graphite pencils, no problem at all. But because I wanted to paint in first the background and all kinds of things, I really want to do that setup with the pencils, so I know where to put the paint. Now I first drew in the branch on which the bird is sitting on, and in that way I have an easy start for where to put the bird. And I'm watching closely the little paws that are on the branch. It has 3 toes on the front of the branch and then 1 back toe that's grabbing from the back side of the branch. Furthermore, I watch for the direction in which the bird is looking, and as far as I can see, it's singing a song or something. The beak is open, and once you've put in the beak, you know where to place the eye. Now what I can also see is the underneath of the tail. So I've drawn in the underneath of the tail on the left side of the branch, and from that back side of the tail you can see the actual tail feathers, which are long and hard. So a very small sketch, just with the main important lines that I've put in. And later on you can always erase the graphite lines if you want, but you will see as I proceed that well, they will disappear, because I'm going to paint along those lines, and well, they will just disappear. And I want to put in a nice background. And should you want to see the whole process, you can watch me on my Patreon page. I have hundreds of tutorials there in real time, so you can paint along and draw along with me. There are painting and drawing tutorials on my Patreon page, all in real time. Now I want to have a bit of a dynamic background, so I'm using a little bit of tissue to put in a little bit of bokeh effect. And once I'm happy with the background, or I have enough value standing there, and the background is dry enough, then I can start with coloring in the bird itself. And I'm happy with the few lines that I've drawn, because in that way I'm not well, gazing at the dark and not knowing where to put in the pigments. So you can see how handy it is to do a little sketch work before hitting your paper with the watercolors. And I take notice of the source of the light, which is coming from above. So I've put in the shadow on the underneath of the belly. And of course the bird has some markings in the face. It's a little bit bluish on the head, a little bit reddish on the breast. And so I simply put in some dots of color here and there. And I also do that with the branch itself. For the branch I will take some a little bit of brownish color, and I also work the brownish color into the bird a little bit, so that the bird blends into its environment. And in this part of the branch there's a little bit more shadow, and here is a little bit more light. So for the top of the branch I'm using a little bit lighter brown, and for the lower parts I use a little bit darker brown. I want also the branch to be a little bit 3D, of course. And then I put in a second wash for the background in top. I want that part to be quite dark, so that the head pops out really, really strongly. So that's the nice thing about working with the watercolors. You can always put in layer on layer on layer, and in that way, well, you can work your way up just like you would once you were drawing with a charcoal or something. I also put in a little well, blurry branches in the background, so that I just make them up so that it looks like the bird is sitting in between the trees, making it a little bit more lively. And I love the way that the material shows. So you can actually see the materials working here, showing us the bird, showing us the background, showing us the branches. And this is my white gouache. I use that for the feathery effects, for instance. And it's always nice to combine the white gouache with the watercolors, because well, they're kind of like sister and brother of each other, and it makes the effects really soft. And also put in a little bit of yellow for the beak. You see, I like the three primary colors in the face. So I have a little bit of yellowish for the beak, a little bit of bluish for the head, and then reddish for the breast, and a little bit of orange with a red for the tiny little paws. Now this is my fountain pen, and I filled it with the black Parker ink. And well, I always like a little bit of line and wash in my work. It makes my painting look a little bit well, precious or something. It brings a kind of fragility into my drawings and paintings. So just combining them a little bit, putting in some fine detail around the eyes and the beak, in between the feathers, on the tiny toes of the bird. Well, line and wash is something that's also I'm very keen of, just putting in tiny details, making the bird look as fragile as possible. Not too much, not too thick, just a little bit. You can also leave it out, of course, but I just wanted to show how nice the effect can be of combining the watercolor, the white gouache, and the fountain pen all together. Now this is the marking on the head. I'm putting that in extra dark, makes it a little bit of a bandit there. And the Parker ink is a little bit soluble with water, so if I think the lines are too black or too harsh, I can always put in a little bit water over it, or a little bit of the white gouache. I also use the white gouache to to scrape it onto the paper to make feathers appear. So I like that too. Little shine on the top of the head maybe, making it as soft again as possible. That's the beak. The beak is really popping out now with that dark background, so I'm very pleased with that. And as you can see, as I said, I just pulled the pigments of the white gouache out of the tube. So, I hope you enjoyed watching, and give this bird a try, of course. And should you like to watch the whole process, then of course you can find me on my Patreon page, should you like to join me there. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in one of my other tutorials.